Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
Hey there, and thanks for checking out This Day in Sports History. It's December 26th, and today we remember the original Mud Bowl that was played on this day in 1977. Now, there have been a host of well-known bad weather games played in the NFL. We've talked about a few already, and the others will certainly show up later on in this podcast. But in this epic battle of man versus nature, the Minnesota Vikings were on the West Coast for a meeting with the Los Angeles Rams in the playoffs and a rematch of the previous year's NFC title game, which the Vikings had won. The Rams had struggled in the playoffs against the Vikings in the recent past when playing outdoors in frigid Minnesota weather, so Los Angeles was happy to be getting the Vikings at home in the warmth and sunshine of California for this one, except it was anything but sunny and warm. Instead, Southern California was hit by a torrential rainstorm, and it changed the dynamics in this game for sure, with water puddling at midfield prior to kickoff. These two had met in the regular season back in October, with the Rams winning that one 35-3 on a Monday night. In addition, Vikings quarterback Fran Tarkenton had been injured in that previous matchup and was still out for this one, so it was backup QB Bob Lee who was called on to lead Minnesota on this day. Head coach Bud Grant wanted to air it out in the early part of the game before the monsoon turned the field into a total quagmire, and Lee responded, going 5 for 5 on that first drive, which included a couple of receptions by the NFC's leading receiver that season, Ahmad Rashad. The Vikes' opening drive culminated in a 6-yard Chuck Foreman TD run and a 7-0 lead for Minnesota. At that point, the field really started to deteriorate. Players were slipping and sliding when trying to make cuts or when the quarterbacks were trying to set up in the pocket to throw. So it turned into a ball control, run first, run second, run it again kind of game. In fact, Lee would only attempt 3 passes in the second half, and only one of those found its mark. By the fourth quarter, the players were covered by so much mud, the only way to tell the two teams apart was by the helmets. The Vikings scored their second touchdown of the game in the fourth when Sammy Johnson went over from the 1 to give Minnesota the 14-0 lead. Now, on the ensuing kickoff, was it a squib kick like play-by-play man Vin Scully called it, or was it an intentional onside kick? Or is it more likely that Vikings kicker Fred Cox slipped when he planted his left foot and it turned into an inadvertent onside kick that paid off for the Vikings? The ball pinged off a Ram, and the Vikings recovered it in the midfield mud pit. It was one of 3 turnovers LA had on the day. No points came out of the turnover, but it did run some precious time off the clock. The Rams finally got on the scoreboard with just under a minute to play in the game after Pat Hayden hit Harold Jackson for a short TD pass. The Rams pulled off a successful and this time planned onside kick and had a chance to tie the ball game in the final seconds, but Hayden's heave was intercepted at the goal line, and the Vikings were off to the NFC Championship game again. Minnesota would lose the following week to the eventual Super Bowl champs, the Dallas Cowboys. But on this day in 1977, the Vikings conquered the Rams and the elements to win the Mud Bowl. Interesting fact, Joe Namath was on the sidelines for the Rams as Hayden's backup. He never played in this game, and he retired soon after. Also on this day, in 1919, the Boston Red Sox traded a pitcher by the name of Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. And in 2004, Peyton Manning threw his 49th TD pass of the season to top Dan Marino's record for touchdown passes in a season set 20 years prior. That record has since been bested twice. Tom Brady upped the mark to 50 in 2007, and then Peyton reclaimed the record in 2013 with 55 TD passes, which is the current record. That's all for today. If you have a moment, rate and subscribe, and let your friends and family know that you found the new sports podcast that they might enjoy. Thanks for listening today, and I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.